To mark this milestone, Switzerland is hosting 3 delegations from South Africa this week. My fellow anchor, Sakina Kamwendo, has travelled with the team and she filed this report for us.
And coming to you live from the beautiful city of Bern, and as you can see, spectacular backdrop, and have had so much opportunity to take in the city and all that it has to offer, and particularly for South Africans in terms of science, technology and innovation, and an agreement that was signed here today, one in a long line of many agreements of cooperation between South Africa and of course Switzerland. And I'm here with the 2 ambassadors who are responsible for this latest cooperation that we have signed, and we're going to break down what you saw earlier in terms of just getting a sense of what this latest cooperation actually means. So I'm joined by the 2 ambassadors. Thank you so much for stepping out from your dinner, and let's just talk to the agreement that you signed today and what it means for both Switzerland and South Africa.
Well, actually, what we signed today are the minutes of a joint committee. We have signed an agreement in 2007, but from this moment, it's 12 years that passed, and there were really hundreds of contacts between Swiss and South African researchers, students, institutions, and I think it's a very vibrant and vivid collaboration between the 2 countries in the field of science and innovation. What makes me especially happy today is that we have here with us a large South African delegation visiting Swiss institutions, because there's still a lot of potential for more in the years to come, and that's the important point. We extended the scope of the collaboration also to the field of innovation, but also to new kind of institution. Everybody knows the classical universities. Less people know the University of Applied Sciences, who are a Swiss specialty. You would find in some other countries, but where the students actually have also a direct connection to the labor market. So if you want to access such universities, you need to have an experience on the job. And what is really interesting and what's something in for Switzerland is that they need international exposure. And I think that to have this complementarity between South African and Swiss institutions, it's a big opportunity for both of them to fit better into each one's needs. And I think that it will be very interesting to see how the collaboration will develop in this field in the years to come. The second thing that makes me really very happy is that there are quite intense conversations now between the National Research Foundation of South Africa and the Swiss Science National Foundation, both funding agencies. They have been working together quite intensely and very well working together in the last years. They build confidence between each other, and maybe, if we're lucky, in few months there might be an agreement between the 2 of them for a closer cooperation that will allow researchers for both countries to make joint research projects without having a very cumbersome bureaucracy behind it. You just will have to apply at one or the 2 of them to have your project reviewed. So it would be a huge asset for both countries, and this would be the first time that the Swiss National Science Foundation signs such an agreement with a country outside of Europe. So really a big step.
Now, I want you to break it down, because very often, when we talk about scientific innovation, people sometimes are intimidated by that because they don't understand. So talk to us about, some of the projects that this particular partnership has yielded over the years.
There has been a lot of work around the research in the sciences. And one of the projects that's that has an exciting outcome. It's a project that was conducted between Agroscope, a Swiss institution, and the Agricultural Research Council in South Africa. The research was around the sustainability of seeds that could acclimatize and be sustainable within the changed climate environment. And what was very exciting to hear from the CEO of the council was that work has been completed, and actually the product is with our farmers at the local government level. So that's one of the exciting outcomes of this exercise. But people are going to be able to be exposed to the booklet. A booklet is going to be produced that contains the work that has gone on for the last 10 to 12 years, where there's been research on different themes, on different aspects of our work between the two countries. People are going to be able to know what has been going on. And the importance here is that the work that has been taking place in laboratories behind the scene is now going to be available to people who are not necessarily in that laboratory. And for South Africa, it's a very important aspect and activity, because people have to be aware that with all that we're faced with, we're also part of the scientific world in terms of research. We're in there. We've got a foot in, and we've got to see more happening around these issues. The president has lead on certain aspect of technology in terms of launching of agencies in South Africa. We hope the youth that is attached to those agencies are going to be able to benefit from what the Swiss government is offering. We've got scholarships. Most students should take those scholarships. We are going to have exchange programs. Most students should be able to come into the Swiss scene and be able to see how research is conducted, how partnerships are forged. For an example, in Switzerland, you'll find that the government contributes to the funding of research. The business companies from the business sector, they also contribute. Institutions, not just one institutions, but a collaboration of different institutions will be available, for an example, to support 3 researchers, just for them to be able to get an outcome of their project. We've just been to a conference a few weeks ago. There were 3 young people, the eldest of whom was 27 years. These young people have produced a small tank that's going to be able to measure the levels of CO2 in the environment. They put it at the airport. They'll tell you Boeing 707 emits this level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. A different plane emits so much. So that in itself is the response to the challenges that we're facing on climate change. There has been a company that measures food waste, and that company of young people is linked to the Sustainable Development Goals. Those are some of the things that we're looking at, and we have been saying the next step, we want to link such research to our own entrepreneurs on the ground so that we benefit from both sides. Mm-hmm. There has been a discussion this morning, and it was a discussion around the management of data. How do you manage data? How do you use it? Who do you give access to? How do you control that data? These are some of the issues that we'll need to get into and understand, because we have already taken steps to be involved in those kind of areas. We are also looking forward to ensuring that as the science, the research, the innovation and technology process continues and succeeds, we do not leave behind issues of transformation, issues of equality. And this will then mean that all the previously disadvantaged institutions are also brought in to benefit, because there's been this skewed development where people may not be empowered enough to be able to access some of the research that is going on. This is an issue that was tabled with the minister, with the ambassador this morning, to say that we need to also look at those universities and see how they can be assisted at the level of building the skills, at the level of empowerment, but also at the level of joint efforts. We already have an exciting project happening with the University of Venda around the renewable energy. Within that vicinity, already there's a joint effort to try and make sure that we explore possibilities around renewable energy. The engineering sector also, there's a budding project. But we are also saying for the future, now that we've taken the initial steps to move into the research, we need to take the next level. And the next level would be you get your entrepreneurs in South Africa to come in and explore possibilities of marketing their products on the Swiss front. That's another level that we said we need to be talking about. It's not just about research and knowledge. We need into now the economic sector. Can we launch our projects and compete and also get partners to work with from the Swiss scene?
What you just mentioned is extremely interesting because I think we were actually pioneering together in the Swiss South African Business Development Program, which provided the opportunity to young South African and Swiss entrepreneurs coming from the science side who wants to go into the market. Exactly the point that you were mentioning. So because we need that the research turned then into products and services for the benefit of people. And we had young South African coming here to Switzerland and young Swiss people going to South Africa. We'll continue to do so. We helped also some of the part of the program was narrowed down to the most interesting projects, and this will be continued. You mentioned many fields already of collaboration. We could have mentioned also public health, which is very interesting because it's not only targeting from our side to the problems that you might have in South Africa, but also the reverse phenomenon, because sometimes with the international migration, some diseases may affect again Switzerland, and we're not prepared sometimes to tackle them. So that's where it's very important that we have this complementarity. So it's really something that is important to us. It's not development aid, it's really collaboration between two equals.
It certainly is, and thank you so much, both Your Excellencies, for your time this evening, and looking forward to learning more and seeing more of this work in action. You heard there about the delegation from Venda, and of course we'll be meeting them as we move across the land this week as this delegation, this mission here, and coming to you now this evening from the most picturesque of scenes, and here at the Rose Garden. And it's a rose garden because it has over, is it 200 or 2,000 variety of roses, and it is absolutely breathtaking. So with these beautiful visuals, we'll call it a night.